All right, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. If you're new today, welcome to you. Everyone else, what is going on? How are you feeling? I hope this moment finds you feeling reasonably well, all things considered. I'm wondering if in this moment that you're listening to this right now, you are also looking at a screen. It's fine if you are. I'm not trying to say anything about it. I'm not trying to moralize about it. I guess part of me is hoping that you're not. That's the main reason why I don't video the episodes and put them out on YouTube or whatever. I specifically want them to just be audio. I just want it to be sound coming into your ears. And ideally you're looking out the window at a cloud, or you're walking along the path. Ideally the sounds are just coming into your ears and your eyes aren't also taking in screens. And I'm thinking about that because I just got in an argument with my youngest daughter downstairs about what she's watching on a Sunday morning. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I would wake up on a Sunday morning, go downstairs, watch cartoons. Like what, Tom and Jerry or the Smurfs, you know? I just dated myself, I'm sure. But, we watched cartoons, and what was on the TV was relatively benign in certain ways. But now we have Netflix, right? And, they have filters for kids' shows and stuff. But we let Annabelle down there watching TV on her own, pick stuff that she want to watch. And she was watching perfectly appropriate stuff. We see what she's watching. It's not like we're not paying attention at all. But then Netflix has this function, recommended for Annabelle, right? And it recommends different shows to her. And she picked up on this one, which is, I think it's called Creeped Out. And you know what it is? It's essentially a kid's version of Black Mirror. I don't know if you know the show Black Mirror. I watched the first season of Black Mirror, and then I stopped watching. I couldn't watch it anymore. It's like this dystopian, dark, modern version of the Twilight Zone, if you're old enough to remember that show. But it was very disturbing to me, Black Mirror. I felt like it was too close to home because it feels like that is really where we're going. And it freaked me out. I didn't like it. I didn't want to watch it because of that. I didn't want that to be in my brain. And so here's my daughter, 7-year-old, downstairs watching this kid's version of Black Mirror, and it's very disturbing. I'm feeling a little bit disturbed watching it. It's filling me full of anxiety and fear watching it. I'm like, why is my daughter watching this on a Sunday morning? Now, the good part about it is that Annabelle's actually doing well enough where I can have an argument with her. Regular listeners know not so long ago Annabelle was struggling, and frankly I haven't been talking about it. She's been doing pretty good, and I haven't wanted to talk about it because I don't want to jinx nothing. So things have been going reasonably well. We still have some challenges, but she's doing well enough that I can try to parent a little bit, and I can have a little argument with her about what she's watching. But it's hard to argue because Netflix recommended it and she likes it a lot. And this is a total aside and maybe a little bit of a rabbit hole that I definitely don't want to go down in this intro. If you want to go down, you can go on your own. But if you take a look at the founder of Netflix and his family, he's related to, what's that guy's name? I think he's Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda. He's related. He comes from that family. And I'm not trying to say anything about it, but it's just a weird thing that we have this Netflix, which used to be going to rent videos. Remember? We used to go to the video store. Does anybody remember when Netflix was actually in-person locations where you got movies for your VCR? Now it's this algorithm that serves up my daughter these dystopian shows and puts all this fear and anxiety into her head. So I guess I've just been thinking a lot about this because for myself, after we got over this hurdle of school starting and Annabelle's doing okay now, to some degree, she's doing okay. Let me knock on some wood. I have had more space to like take care of myself, you know? When the focus isn't all on her, I have room to see what I need. And first, my hips started screaming at me. And if you've been following along, you know I've been talking about that. And I've got an update, but I'm going to do it on the other side. After today's conversation, I'll give you an update on my hip, on how my physical therapy session went and what my next steps are. But the other thing that's come up, which you've heard about before, if you've been listening to this show, you know I have issues with my eyesight. Some years back, I was diagnosed with what's called keratoconus, which is a condition that has to do with the shape of your corneas and affects your eyesight. And I had that guy on. We talked about the Bates method. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I haven't been talking about it, but my eyes haven't been so great because my screen time has been out of control, which is another thing I've talked about. I talked about screen addiction, and I've been thinking a lot about the screens and the addictions we have to them. And you can see it with the kids. It's just gross. They're so addicted to the screens already at such a young age. I know like this one middle school has taken to confiscating all the kids' phones in the morning because they're just not functioning well in class because of these damn phones. And, you know, I've been thinking about it in the sense of how different things that your addiction attached to have different ramifications, right? Being addicted to cocaine and having to get off of that is sort of a different thing than when you've got addiction issues around food, I think, let's say. Because food, you need food to survive. You need to eat to live. So when your addictions are around that and there's dysfunction there, it feels like a harder thing to sort out in some ways. I mean, maybe not because cocaine's more addictive, but maybe you get my point, right? Well, I feel the same about screens because I'm completely dependent on screens to survive right now. Of course, not all the time I spend on screens is the things that I'm doing to survive. It's like a lot of just watching shit, right? And for myself, if I'm too hard on me, I'm so already that way. I'm so self-critical in many ways and hard on myself. Like if there's a voice in my head that's saying, Jay, you got to stop doing this. You got to stop spending so much time on the screens. And I'm like having this not so supportive, but like tough love voice in my head. It's counterproductive. I feel broken down. I don't feel like I have what I need to do the things that I want to do. And then I just end up watching more screens. So what I've been looking for is a different idea. In the same way that I've talked about with our bodies and our yoga philosophy, like the idea that you hold changes whatever the thing is. So the idea that I hold around screens and my eyes is what I'm looking to shift. And that's what today's conversation with James Swanwick is about. You see, James owns this company called Swanwick Eyewear, I think it's called. Forgive me if I got that wrong, James, but he produces blue light blocking glasses called Swannies. And I bought a pair of these glasses a couple years ago because I got the diagnosis and I wanted to try to ease eye strain. And I'll be honest, when it was just about that for me, when it was just like, oh, I'll wear these sometimes to like ease eye strain, it didn't do that much. Like, because the idea I had around them wasn't an idea that I think was really making them make sense to me. But that did change. I came to have a different idea, which actually ties into the animism thread that I've been talking about on this show and getting back into nature. Well, I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to spoil anything because we're going to talk about it. But these blue light blocking glasses have played some role for me in looking to reattune with the natural rhythms. So, for whatever it's worth, my conversation today is with James Swanwick. We're going to talk about blue light blocking glasses. And he also is a real advocate for an alcohol-free life. So we talk some about alcohol and why he's such a passionate proponent of reducing, if not eliminating, alcohol consumption. And today is definitely a bit of a wild card episode, so to speak, in the sense that it came about in a more random kind of way. Often I'm reaching out to people and I'm pulling on certain threads, and one conversation is kind of leading to others. As listeners know, I kind of have my own process of bringing about these conversations. Well, today's was because I got an email from a PR person, and I almost never bring someone on just because I got an email from a PR person. In fact, I don't. The few times I have brought someone on because of that reason, where a PR person emails me and says, hey, let me introduce you to this person. If you want to bring them on our show, let me know. I almost never respond to that unless something about that person or something about that email or their book or whatever is in that email spurs a little alarm in my head, like there's a synchronicity there. And so when somebody reached out and said, hey, do you want to have James Swanwick on your show? And that was the guy who founded the company for the blue light blockers that I purchased. And I did a bunch of research. I read up a lot about the different companies and the different types. So I remembered the name immediately, like a bell went off. And I was like, okay, yeah, I want to talk to him about my screen addiction and, and my eyesight. So in any case, it is a little bit of a random coming together, but it led to an interesting conversation, and I'm glad to be sharing it with you today. Real quick before we get to it, I want to express gratitude to our podcast premium subscribers, because without them, we really wouldn't be able to do the show like we've been doing it for as long as we have. Today, I want to express special thanks to Eliza Giles and Naomi Westfallen. Cheers to you, Eliza and Naomi. Thank you so much for supporting the show with your subscription. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're newer to the show, we have our most recent 52 episodes, the last year of episodes, are always part of the public feed. We also do have a podcast premium subscription, which gives you access to the full archives, but is also a way for people to help support the show. It's choose your rate, canceled anytime. If you don't have money and there's an old episode you want to listen to, just email us and we'll totally give you free access. But if you have a little bit of money, this is really how independent media survives, and we're just so appreciative of everyone who makes that gesture. To learn more about becoming a podcast premium subscriber and all the rest of my stuff, I should mention again, I said it last week, but I'm supposed to mention again that if you were looking to be part of the teacher training program and you missed the early bird pricing deadline and you want to have the possibility of getting in on further discount pricing, subscribe to the email list. If you're not on the email list, we've got some special promotions going out to those people. Go to the website, go to the homepage down midway, or go to the bottom of any page on the website, and you can subscribe for free to the email list, and you'll get notifications about that. So, glad I didn't forget that. If you want to learn more about becoming a podcast premium subscriber, the teacher training, or subscribe to the email list, any of my stuff, everything can be found at jbrownyoga.com. All right, y'all, that's good. I will touch base with you on the other side. I'll tell you about the hip, and we'll do a little debrief. But for now, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's listen to this conversation that I had with James Swanwick.
Hello there.
Hi, James. Good to meet you.
You too. Great to meet you also.
Yeah, it's a little bit of, there's a little bit of randomness to us coming together. I am recording right now, so just sure. So you know, I don't want it to be by a surprise. I'd like to consider us having just begun.
Perfect.
And I like to let people know, like, what motivated me to invite them to be here on the show. It's not, sometimes there's, like, the show's often very geared towards yoga teachers and like a lot of stuff that's sort of specific to that. But then I have to explore like a lot of kind of adjacent areas, and most of them just have to do with my own inquiry into like my health and my well-being. And so I've spoken to a bunch of different folks in a wide range of modalities or whatever. And a lot of times I try to let kind of like the tea leaves decide what's going to be the conversation that happens. And that's definitely what happened with you.
Okay.
So just as like an introduction for anybody who's listening, and just for you to know why you're talking to me, I think for myself, like insomnia has always been a kind of an issue in my adult life. And in my early 20s, I just kind of used it. Like I was artist lifestyle and just like got some of my best thinking and creating done late. And then I would sleep in late, and I got to get away with that, you know. I had an apartment in Lower East Side of Manhattan for $600 a month. I didn't have to make a lot of money. I could just kind of burn the candle at both ends and kind of in my 20s get away with that, you know? And at some point, I just wanted to feel okay. Like I didn't feel good. And getting into yoga was like the huge part of that. And like tackling my insomnia and my sleep issues was part of that. And I kind of came up with the whole range of issues, or like range of like kind of things that's really helped me and kind of got my sleep in order. Now it's like kind of a big part of my health. And then, you know, fast forward 10 years to the internet, because there was no internet at that time, actually. And I remember very specifically at one point early on in this show, I had my friend Douglas Rushkoff on. I don't know if you know who Douglas Rushkoff is. He's kind of a media theorist. He was involved in the internet in an early time. I think he invented the term like viral, like something going viral. And he came to record with me at my apartment in Brooklyn, and I was recording in a basement. And the basement had the worst lighting you could imagine, just like these old fluorescent tube, the worst possible kind of light quality that you could have. And I was totally unaware, like not paying attention to lighting or whatever. And Doug came downstairs and he immediately reacted. He's like, oh, and he like, let me go get my glasses. And he like went upstairs, came back down with these like yellow lensed glasses. And I was like, what are those? And he's like, oh, these are blue light blockers. Basically, like all of my computer programmer friends, like everybody in the tech world, they all have them because they all realize how much the screens are like fucking up our eyes. And I remember like registering that, like, oh, wow. And then like, I didn't do shit about it for like a couple years after that, you know. But then I moved from Brooklyn to Pennsylvania, and my health really took a much worse turn, and my sleep got way out of whack because I was on the screen so much. Like so much of my life went online. And I just remembered Doug talking about those orange lens glasses and the blue light. And so I went online and like kind of obsessively read a bunch of stuff and learned that like not all blue light lenses are the same. Like when you get your eyeglasses, they talk about blue light lenses, and we can talk about that some today. But like I did all this research, and I ended up buying a pair of Swannies, a pair of over the glasses Swannies. For me, I just liked what it said about the lenses, and you guys seem to like know what the fuck you're talking about. Excuse my language, but
right.
In any case, so I had them for a while. And what I will say to you, and then we can get into this more, is that I had them at first and I kind of thought of them as like relieving eye strain, you know, like I just want to relieve eye strain and it'll help me sleep better. I didn't really understand the whole melatonin connection. And one of the big threads on this podcast is animism and kind of like relationship to environment. And like that has a lot to do with phases of light. So what ended up really making them make more sense to me was kind of like a whole deeper idea about why to use them even. So in any case, maybe that's a little bit of a long-winded way to kind of just say to you, oh, that's what brings me to it. I know you do a lot of like coaching work around like alcohol consumption, which I'm interested to talk to you a little bit about too. But I guess just for you to also say, maybe I think I've even heard you say it's a similar story, but how do you end up caring about blue light and making a company that makes orange lens glasses?
Yeah, yeah. But I was a socially acceptable drinker of alcohol right up until 2010, and I was the guy that I'd have a couple drinks a night just to relax. I might drink pretty heavy on the weekends. And then in 2010, I was in my mid-30s, and I thought, I just want to take a break. So I took a break from alcohol for 30 days, and I lost 13 pounds. I felt better. I landed a dream job at the time, hosting a TV show, Sports Center on ESPN, and I really credited the clarity and the focus and the energy to being alcohol-free. And so I just kept on going, and I haven't drunk alcohol since 2010. But what that change of habit did for me is open me up to a whole cascade of other healthy habits, which include sleep. And so once I removed the alcohol from the system, I noticed that I was sleeping better. I felt more refreshed in the morning. I wasn't tossing and turning so much in the night. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is fantastic. I'm going to keep on with this. And then, I was exposed to things like meditation and journaling, some plant medicines like ayahuasca and things like that. And in 2015, I was in Palm Springs, California, and I was out with some friends in a hotel restaurant, and my friend came in and sat down, and he was wearing this really ugly pair of Uvex safety goggles in this very nice restaurant. And there was a table of quite attractive looking women adjacent to us, and they were looking at him thinking, I suspect they were thinking, what the hell is that guy doing wearing those glasses? I mean, he looked like a meth addict, a meth chemist, I should say, not an addict, a meth chemist, like Walter White's character in Breaking Bad,
Right.
And I said to him, what are you doing wearing those ridiculous Uvex glasses to dinner? And he said, I'm trying to block the blue light. And I said, block the blue light? What are you talking about? And he went on to explain that the light at night from the kitchen light, the bathroom light, the microwave light, the hotel light, the cell phone light, the computer light, the television screen light, the speedometer light in your car, the McDonald's golden arches lights as you're driving along the freeway, all of that light at night is suppressing our melatonin release. And that shows up in either having trouble falling asleep or tossing and turning in the night, or waking up in the morning, even if you've slept 7 or 8 hours, but not feeling refreshed because you didn't spend as long in that deep restorative REM phase of sleep. And if you're listening to us now, chances are you're listening to us on a phone, or you might be listening on a computer. You're probably holding your phone right now. Maybe you're running, maybe you're walking, maybe you're driving in the car. Just have a look around. Look at all of the light that you're being exposed to right now. Even if it's the daytime, you look at there's light coming from your phone, correct? And all of that light is messing with us. And I'll go into the details of how it's messing with us in a little bit, but just to bring the story full circle, after that trip to Palm Springs, I went back to my place in Los Angeles. I dug out an old pair of ski goggles that had an amber lens to it, and I started wearing these ridiculous ski goggles while watching reruns of the AMC TV series Mad Men. And what I noticed is that I actually felt sleepier quicker than when I wasn't wearing the goggles. And when I removed the goggles and ultimately went to sleep, I realized that I was falling asleep quicker. And when I woke up in the morning, I realized I was feeling more refreshed. And so I thought, wow, there's something to this. Block blue light with an orange or amber lens and I'll sleep better. But I'm just vain enough and got an ego big enough that I wanted to look stylish wearing a pair of blue light blocking glasses. And so
you didn't want to be that your friend at the club with those lame ass glasses on, huh?
No.
Cramping your style.
No. And I was living in Hollywood at the time. It's everyone's got to be cool and hip and stylish.
Of course you would have thought that way. I'm from the San Fernando Valley, so I know that would have been part of your consciousness if you were like living there probably. Yeah.
That's right. It was. And so that's how we came up with producing the tech of orange lens glasses in a stylish pair. And today they're called Swannies. The company's called Swanwick Sleep. We're now worn by professional athletes who are trying to optimize their sleep. Pro athletes at the Denver Broncos, the New York Knicks, the New Orleans Saints, Manchester United, Los Angeles Lakers. Players from all of those teams are all now wearing our Swannies blue light blocking glasses because the athletes and certainly the sports scientists, helping the athletes know and are knowledgeable and are educated that getting a great night's sleep is crucial to optimal performance.
Right. What I would say is, from my standpoint, like from my yoga teacher vantage point, I think of it much less as a biohack and much more as like coming into better harmony with the way my environment is, you know? So, and I'll also say to you, like, I have two kids. I got a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old daughter. And, you know, we had some pretty good boundaries around the screens before the pandemic, but it just screwed it up for like everybody. And I just don't think a lot of people think about this or have a sense of this, just like based on the way like other parents are like recommending these melatonin gummies that they feel like are helping their kids, but not reducing like how late they get to see the screens before they go to bed. You know what I mean? Like it's just so totally out of whack. So like nobody's even making a connection that we're letting the kids be on these screens all the time and like depleting their melatonin. Then we're trying to give them melatonin gummies to try to supplement the melatonin. And I'm like, oh my God. So maybe you, like you said, you could say a little bit about that. Why, how is it that the blue light at night is affecting kind of like melatonin in sleep?
Yeah. Well, here's how it works. When we lived for tens of thousands of years without artificial light, okay, we would live by a fire, okay? And then at the turn of the century, late 1800s, Rockefeller produced a ton of oil, which turned into kerosene, and now all of a sudden human beings were staying up later because we could now have this light at night, right? Whereas years before, we would go to sleep not long after the sun would go down. We'd build a fire and we'd look into the fire, and fire does not disrupt melatonin production. Natural flame does not disrupt sleep. So you can stare into a fire and you're still going to sleep just fine. But our sleeping habits changed around the turn of the century, and with the mass production of kerosene going into almost every home across America, and then we started staying up late, right? Then the light bulb, Thomas Edison mass-produced the light bulb. And in my opinion, that alone, that production, that mass production of the light bulb was where all of our health started to deteriorate to the degree where if we fast forward 120-something years now, and we've got all kinds of cancers, obesity, stress, anxiety. We never had that in the late 1800s, the early 1900s. Yeah, we died of other things, right? But we didn't die of all the things that we're dying from today. So just to explain what happens, now that we have this artificial light at night, which emits an artificial blue light, that blue light stimulates our pituitary and pineal glands. Okay, the blue light stimulates our pituitary and pineal gland. And what that essentially tells our mind and our body is this: it's daytime. But guess what? Most of the time, it's not daytime, it's nighttime. So at a time when you are trying to go into a restorative phase, when you're trying to relax, when your body naturally wants to go into this preparing for sleep, getting sleepy, getting ready to shut down mode, we're like, let's scroll on Instagram. Let's watch the game. Let's go for a drive. Let's use the microwave. Let's open the fridge. Let's brush our teeth in the bathroom light. And so now the body and the brain's going, oh, okay, cool. It's daytime. Therefore, I'm not going to release the amount of melatonin that I naturally want to release. I'm going to flood you with daytime hormones because it's clearly daytime. Even though
all this blue light around, it must be.
Exactly. So that's what's going on. We're living our life at night with artificial light, and our body thinks that it's still daytime, which means it doesn't prepare for sleep. It doesn't release melatonin the way it naturally wants to, which means we don't fall asleep as quickly, which means we don't sleep as deeply, which means we wake up feeling tired, irritable, frustrated. And then, of course, that leads to us, because we're sleepy, we like reach for a sugary treat to give us some energy, and we eat a Kit Kat, or we drink a Gatorade, or we have a bagel, or we whatever. And then we have the afternoon crash. It's like, oh, let me just have a little chocolate bar here or a muffin or something. And then at night, of course, oh, so tired. It's been such a long day. Let me pour myself a drink, just a drink to relax. And then, of course, you have a drink to seemingly relax, but all that does is compromise your sleep even more, because now you're putting your body to work to break down the toxins from the alcohol. Plus, you're now brushing your teeth with the light on. Your body and brain thinks that it's daytime, and then you have a crappy night's sleep. And people wonder why we've got all these cancers and sickness and obesity and frustration and stress and anxiety and mental illness all over the world. If we just focus on, in my opinion, either seriously reducing or eliminating alcohol and just being intentional about your sleeping habits, wow, you could solve most of the world's problems, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of them for sure. I mean, it's interesting that you market the invention of the light bulb. Douglas often talks about the invention of the printing press, that there's these certain moments in like whatever the evolution of humanity on the planet where there's a huge shift. I've even heard Michael Pollan talk about when caffeine was introduced, and then there's a reason why everybody gets coffee breaks and free coffee at work, and like how the change in behavior shifted with those kinds of moments. So that shift to artificial light and our kind of ability to control the rhythm. I think about when I went on my honeymoon with my wife, we went to this island and it didn't have it was only like natural light. And we went to bed so early and woke up so early. We were amazed, and we didn't even have to try because it was just with the light, way the light was. And it's something I often talk about on the show these days is animism, and like, this kind of, there's a kind of harmony to the natural rhythms of our environment. And it's that removing ourselves from it that's, like you say, causing so much of our ill health and trouble. And I guess trying to find how to, we're not going to go back to caveman times or something like that. So finding the ways in which we can be aware, I guess, is the first step about this reality. Yeah. You articulated it perfect. Like, too many people listening to this right now are like, oh fuck, that's me. But we also don't want to be too hard. There's so much on us. So to find kind of proactive ways to kind of I found smaller changes, like the glasses were really helpful,
I'm so happy to hear the glasses are really helpful. Yeah. So look, here's the best way to live your life if you want to sleep the way nature always intended you to sleep. And the answer is to live your life by candlelight. And so that means sit in the dark when the sun goes down, or build a fire in your backyard and sit around the fire, or have kerosene lamps and live your life with a kerosene lamp, right? With natural flame. Now, look, here's the reality. It's 2022. No one's going to do that, are they? Very few. Some people do.
A couple people might, yeah.
No.
I might try a couple nights to just do it as a special night might be cool or whatever.
Amazing. You should do it just to try it. But guess what? I guarantee, I don't know where you live, but I guarantee light.
There's going to be all other kinds of lights.
Street lights will be coming in as well, right?
Yeah.
But, here's the thing. Anyone listening here ever gone camping? There's no lights around when you go camping, right? Like you have a kerosene lamp. I mean, these days maybe you use the
got those little portable LEDs your phone,
but whatever, I mean, back in the 80s, my family, my mum and dad and my brothers, we used to go camping on an island called Moreton Island, which is off the east coast of Australia, where I grew up. And there were no mobile phones. No one had mobile phones, and the light that we used was kerosene lamps. Kerosene lanterns. That's what we used at night. The sun would go down, we'd have a fire, and we'd use kerosene lanterns, and that's how we'd get around. That was in the 80s, right? And I remember just falling asleep within an hour of the sun going down, just sleeping. My parents would go to sleep. The other families that we were camping with, everyone would be asleep by 7:30 because there's no other light around. You just got the stars, you've got the kerosene
if it's
lamps.
Out, yeah.
There's no one's on a screen. No one's on a screen in the 80s, and everyone just fell asleep and slept beautifully. That's how you know that if you eliminate artificial light, you will sleep the way that nature always intended you to sleep. But here's the thing: it's 2022. No one's realistically going to do that, or very few people. Okay, very few people are going to do that. So
they're addictive. Let's not shame everybody. It's very addictive. I'm struggling to set boundaries with my kids because the devices and algorithms are very addictive. So, I mean, it does require people to have a certain discipline and fortitude to like combat that.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to make it even simpler, right? I have to hold up my hand and say, I'm addicted to the phone. I'm addicted to my phone.
I talk about on the show, screen addiction is an ongoing thing I got to cop to, because it's the one area where I feel like I don't do as well as other areas of my life. I got to work on it.
But here's the thing. I've surrendered to the fact that I'm going to be on screens at nighttime. I try to limit it as much as possible, but I've surrendered to the fact I'm just going to be on it. It's a modern world. I got businesses to run. I got things to do. I'm an addict. I'm addicted. But guess what? I ain't looking at my screen without a pair of my blue light blocking glasses on with the orange lens, right? And I'm as guilty as the next person of sometimes even getting into bed and still being on my phone. But guess what? I'm doing it while wearing a pair of orange lens blue light blocking glasses. And that is how we can use, I guess, modern technology to try to manipulate our environment to a point where I am limiting, if not eliminating, the blue light exposure, because none of that blue light is getting into my eyes and none of it is stimulating my pituitary and pineal glands. And here's the thing. I don't take my glasses off until I've switched off the last light. I don't get into bed, take off the glasses, watch a bit of TV, and then turn off the light. I get into bed, turn off the light, then remove the glasses, then put on my Swanwick Sleep mask, and then I go to sleep. So that's the thing. Like, that's the key. Once you put these glasses on, you got to keep them on until the final light has been switched off. Otherwise, if you take them off beforehand, if you wear them for an hour at night and you go, oh, I'm so clever, I listened to this podcast and they told me to wear the blue light blocking glasses, I'm really practicing great sleep hygiene. And then you take your glasses off to go and brush your teeth. Well, guess what? There's the bathroom light, which is now stimulating your pituitary and pineal gland, which is glands, which is now suppressing your melatonin production or your melatonin release. What was the point?
I that's definitely what I did. Like earlier when I said like it didn't really make sense to me or like start to be as effective until I kind of understood what I think you're pointing to right now. And the way that I think about it in a way is sort of the way I think about strength training too, because I was never like a strength training person earlier in my life. I was like, I only need yoga person. And then in my latter years, I just turned 50. Like I definitely have had to incorporate some strength training, but I always had an aversion to gyms and kind of like it being about making your body look a certain way. I was always very adverse to that. But ultimately what it came down to is because of the way my life is, like my lifestyle, there's never an occasion where I pick up anything heavy, ever. So what happens is like I go to the Home Depot and I go to try to pick up a box of tiles and I'm worried my back's going to go out. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm the yoga guy. I'm supposed to be healthy. And I'm worried my back's going to go out when I pick up this box of tiles because there's no time in my life where I ever have to pick up anything heavy. So giving myself a reason to pick up something heavy was just like a functional thing that's been removed from my life because of the way we live and our lifestyles or whatever. And in a similar way, like you say, because there's been this shift to artificial light and we've so manipulated the light cycle. And just as a side note for anybody listening to this, the Gayatri mantra, which is from the early Vedas, it's one of like the core mantras of yoga. And this could be a good marketing point for you, actually, James. Gayatri mantra refers to the phases of light, the dawning, the day, and the dusking. It's like the most fundamental, like primal rhythm, circadian rhythm of our life, and the fact that we've so completely like removed ourselves with artificial light from that rhythm. The idea behind the glasses is like you say, when the sun goes down, we're not supposed to have all that light in our eyes going in our eyes. Right. So you would put them on and you'd have them on and you try to do everything you're going to do before all the lights are out and then you get into bed. Right. And that kind of, and I'm not always as disciplined as I'd like to be about it. But when I do that, when I have done that, I definitely notice the difference as opposed to, like you said, oh, just have it on for that hour or two, but then I took them off and did a bunch of shit, brushing my teeth or whatever before I went to bed. Right. It's about trying to kind of bring myself to that rhythm of the sun went down and now the light's not going in my eyes.
Yeah. Let me share what I consider to be the gold standard of sleep as it relates to what you could do first thing in the morning, later on in the morning, afternoon, and evening.
These are the habits. I wanted to get to them. That's perfect because I think for me, it is about little small choices or little small tweaks or habits that I can put in as like a regular, consistent thing to shift the boat. So please go ahead. I know where you're going.
So here it is, morning until night, from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. Here's what you can do, and here's what you probably should not do if you are wanting to achieve optimal sleep. So first thing in the morning, you want to expose yourself to as much natural.
If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of Jay Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.